So now that we've seen individual examples of how to use all the tools in Moho, in this section of the course, we're going to bring everything together and go through the full process of rigging a character. But before we can rig a character, we have to have the character drawn for us to rig. I'm going to be drawing our character from scratch here in Moho, but in case you want to work in a different program, I wanted to show you how you can import artwork for a character from other file types. The easiest type of file to bring into Moho is a Photoshop file. Here I've got a character file drawn in Photoshop with all its different body parts on different layers ready to be rigged. Now back in Moho, if I go to File, Import, Image, and select a PSD, it gives us several options. Now what the message here is saying is that if you select either individually, composite, or select layers, it will import the image in a way that it references back to the original PSD file. So if you want to edit the artwork after it's been imported, you could do that in Photoshop, and when you save, it would get updated in Moho as well. If you select Layers to PNG, it's going to convert the Photoshop layers to individual PNG images as if they were image layers created in Moho, and you would use the Moho bitmap drawing tools to modify them. If you do that, it's going to ask for a location to keep the PNG files, and then it keeps the PSD's layer structure, but the layers link to the images it created. If you right-click and go to Reveal Source Image, you can see all the individual PSDs it created. Let's import it again, but look at the other options. If we do Select Layers, it shows us all the layers inside the PSD, and you can check just the ones you want to bring in. And if you do Import and choose Composite, it will import the whole file as a single layer. But notice it has a PSD icon, meaning we can right-click and choose Open Source Image, and it will open the PSD in Photoshop, and any changes that get made here will show up in Moho. However, we don't want a single layer, we want all our layers, so let's import it again. And this time choose Individually. Now we have our layer structure, but each layer still references the original PSD. Next, let's look at importing a character made in a vector art program like Adobe Illustrator or Inkscape. Now if you go to File, Import, Vector File, there are options for SVG, Adobe Illustrator, and EPS. But the only one you really want to ever use is SVG. If you try to import an Illustrator AI file directly, first of all, it needs to be saved as an Illustrator 8 file, and your colors are pretty much guaranteed to get messed up. Same with EPS. So if we need to use SVG, let's look at the right way to save an SVG for import into Moho. So here I have a character in Adobe Illustrator, and right away I'll tell you there are some things that are going to be small issues if we try to bring this into Moho. These color gradients aren't going to translate to Moho. So the umbrella and her cheeks and her irises are just going to end up as flat white. So we may as well change them to flat colors here before we export. Once the basic shapes are into Moho, you can use the Moho style tools to recreate those kinds of effects. Then one more thing to warn you about. I'll make an example so I can show you. I'm going to make a line that's just a regular even vector stroke, and then another, and apply a width profile to make it tapered, and we'll see how Moho handles those. Now we need to save this as an SVG, so let's go to File, Save a Copy, and then on this window we set the format to SVG and click Save. Then on the SVG options window, it's important to have your CSS properties set to style attributes, not presentation attributes. Then just click OK. Now in Moho, let's go to import the SVG file. And there we go. Now if we look at those two lines we made, you'll see the line with the tapered ends got converted to a shape, which might be fine depending what it's for. But if you want it to remain a line that you can easily manipulate with Bezier handles, you're better off making it an even line in your other program and using the line width tool here in Moho to taper it. Now, there's another much bigger issue in that it brings in the whole character as one layer, unlike how we had it in Illustrator. So that's a big downside. You would have to select your individual shapes and copy and paste them to separate layers in Moho to get your layer structure back. So if you want to use vector art, that's a good reason to just draw it in Moho from the start. We're going to go through the whole process of drawing a character in Moho and organizing its parts into layers in the next video. I'll see you there.